Hello. Today we are launching the first segment in a monthly series where Superintendent Dr. Jim Roberts takes us on an in-depth look at Bartholomew Consolidated School Corporation. This monthly show will feature many new best practices as well as success stories as we work to create expert learners in our district. We will also be spotlighting authentic UDL implementation in our learning environments. Today's segment will be a special edition as we introduce you to BCSC's new superintendent. We feel confident that you will know Dr. Jim Roberts on a much more personal level after viewing this monthly BCSC in action. Enjoy the show!
Good morning. Welcome to the Dr. Roberts Show. Every few weeks we will try to sit down with Dr. Roberts to learn more about him and BCSC. How are you doing, Mr. Roberts?
I'm just fine, Pedro. Good morning.
Good morning. Now, when you were a kid, what did you think you would be when you grew up?
Oh, gosh, what I thought I would be, I wanted to be an entertainer. And more specifically, I wanted to be a rock star. Mm-hmm. I love music. I kind of lament now, as I'm an educator and a superintendent, I guess. I didn't learn to play the guitar earlier and get started down that career path. But obviously, I'm not a rock star at this point in time.
Now, who was your biggest inspiration when you were growing up?
Gosh, biggest inspiration, my parents. My parents were just wonderful people who are kind, and they taught me and my siblings to be kind and to respect other people. And then my older brother, Dan. Dan was I'm 6 years younger than him, was a very good basketball player in the state of Indiana. In the state of Indiana, that's kind of important. And we both graduated from Brown County High School. And when I was in 5th grade, he was a junior at Brown County and had a chance to win the Columbus North sectional. That may not mean a lot to students who are in school now, but when we were growing up in the one-class basketball system, to come over to Columbus North and play in the gymnasium and have a chance to win the sectional was big. And then his team also went on to win the Columbus North Regional and had a chance to play at the semi-state at Hinkle Fieldhouse in Indianapolis. And then in his senior year, he led the state of Indiana in scoring. And although I was a pretty good athlete, played varsity basketball and baseball, I never quite got to the level of him in terms of basketball. And I think I've always tried to measure myself up to that. Even later on in my career, I've tried to hold myself to his high standards.
That sounds very impressive.
Very.
Now, what other extracurriculars were you involved in as a student?
I mentioned varsity basketball and baseball, and those were very important for me in terms of what they taught me about life. But also was involved in National Honor Society, and then a club called Distributive Education Clubs of America, which was a business marketing club, and had a chance to participate and compete at that level with DECA.
Now, do you have a most important quote or saying that you live by? And if so, why did you choose it?
Yeah, I do, and actually it's a quote that I coined myself, I guess. I pay a lot of attention to quotes from other people, and like to write them on my wall or to send them out in emails to my staff members. But one that I just have internalized was one I kind of put together after working with a lot of volunteers in a prior community that I was in, and just trying to help and do good for other people. And that quote is, if you're looking for something to do good. And I think if we would all kind of think about that, it might help us, because there's a lot of negativity sometimes, maybe even hate that goes around. And if we could focus a little more on the positive energy, maybe we could all just do a little bit better. So that would be it. If you're looking for something to do good.
Those are very critical words to live by.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, if you could go back in time and visit yourself for 1 minute, what advice would you give your younger self?
Gosh, things have worked out well for me. I'm in a position that I love. I work with schools and students and have the chance to educate. So that's very important to me. But if I were to go back and give myself some advice, I would tell myself to make sure and take advantage of all the opportunities that are available. And I would extend that to all of our students here in Bartholomew Consolidated Schools, because we offer so many rich opportunities. So take advantage of opportunities to travel abroad. I know we had some students go to Japan this past summer to learn another language proficiently, and we certainly offer that opportunity within our school systems with the level of foreign languages that we offer, the number and then the number of years. I would ask or tell myself to make sure to learn to play that instrument, so that maybe it could take you down that path of being a rock star, or participate in choir or band. or try out for a play and or be in the musical. Those are all kinds of things that I've enjoyed, and I've tried to kind of follow up on each of those. I wish I'd have started each of those things maybe a little bit earlier in my career. So that's some advice I guess I would give to myself, and as I said, I would make sure to extend to all of our students in Bartholomew Consolidated. Take advantage of the opportunities that are really right there in front of you. Try different things. Step out of your comfort zone. I was an athlete, and playing varsity basketball and baseball was relatively easy for me, but stepping out and doing some of those other things are important too.
Right. And at what moment did you decide you wanted to be an educator?
It was in high school. Had a great experience in high school. I think people who end up teaching, being an administrator, just being involved with schools were probably pretty good students, so they liked school in the first place. So I did like school, and then I just had very good teachers and coaches that served as mentors for me, people that I still consider friends today. And so being in their classrooms, playing underneath some of them in sports, I decided that's kind of what I wanted to do. So I believed that I was going to be a teacher and a coach for the remainder of my work career. And so when I went to Indiana University, that's what I focused on, was actually physical education and math as a background in terms of my bachelor's degree, and received teaching certifications in both. Had a chance then to graduate from IU and begin teaching and coaching, and I coached both junior varsity basketball and varsity baseball, and then I've coached each of those sports at different levels throughout my time. But when I was a teacher, I also then had good administrators I worked for, and those principals began to talk to me about administration, and that I might be okay in that field, and that it would be an opportunity to influence even more students. So as a teacher, I certainly had the students in my classroom, and those kids changed every year. But as administrator, I would be even over more people, so maybe running a high school, all of the students in that high school, or as a superintendent have the chance to affect even greater number of people. In Bartholomew Consolidated, it's almost 12,000 kids. Now, I do miss being in the classroom with kids. I miss coaching and being with kids. But it was during my time as a teacher that I decided that administration would be a good thing for me. So I pursued then a master's degree in administration from Indiana University too. I eventually received my doctorate degree in educational leadership from Nova Southeastern University in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and then stepped into the role as a superintendent. So it's been great. It's been a really good career situation for me, but it did evolve from high school throughout my time to finally get to this point where I'm a superintendent of a school.
Now, what has been your most challenging problem so far as superintendent?
Gosh, you know, there are a variety of problems that we encounter, and some of them are so specific that I would almost be identifying specific individuals if I went down that path of a specific challenge or problem. So I will speak to it maybe broadly, in that the challenge as superintendent of, for example, this school corporation, Bartholomew Consolidated, is taking the diverse opinions of our stakeholders and trying to make sense out of all of them to ensure that we provide a quality education for all of our students. This is a community that has about 2,000 employees in our school corporation, about 12,000 students. We have 18 buildings that have students in them from preschool all the way through adult education, and then we have about 75,000 people within the district boundaries that we have for Bartholomew Consolidated. So that's a lot of people with a lot of opinions. And so as I hear about those and formulate or structure even ways to gather that information, it's important for me to listen, to understand our stakeholders, but then filter that to make sure that from an educational standpoint we are doing what's best for you and the other students of Bartholomew Consolidated, so that when you graduate from here, you are as prepared as we possibly can prepare you for college and career.
Now, if you had unlimited resources, what would you do?
Unlimited resources. Well, I look at that question, again, very broadly in terms of maybe the world as a whole. Unlimited resources to me does mean more than money. A lot of us might think real quickly that you're just giving me a lot of money. I'm assuming that also means time and also people, and then whatever other resources we might want to define. And so I would be trying to help people. There are challenges across the world at this point in time, and how could we invest that money, time, people to help others, to just get rid of some of the tension and conflict and hate that we sometimes see. But then also cancer, you know, that's something that we've been struggling with for a long, long time, and we've made progress, but it's affected me personally and probably affected everybody that I know in one way or another. We've all had somebody that we know who have been affected by cancer. I've had my oldest brother passed away of cancer at the age of 7, and my older brother now, Dan, who I referenced earlier, has cancer. And sometimes I feel helpless in trying to help with that situation. So I think I'd invest my resources in trying to tackle that situation.
Now, have you ever thought about researching cancer or doing anything in the medical field like that?
I have not, and maybe that's another career path I should have taken with my interest and passion. I'm fortunate that each of my 3 daughters is progressing into the medical field in one way or another, so maybe they can, in some small part, be a part of that research and maybe eventually help find a cure.
All right. Now, to what extent do you think technology is helping education, and to what extent do you think it's hurting it?
I think primarily it's helping. It's a tool in our toolbox, so it's not the end-all be-all. It's not something that we bring in technology and that's just what we use to teach our students and to do everything in the world of education, but it is a necessity. It's a way to engage students. Students come in having used technology a lot, so they're kind of expecting that use here. It's also a way to put the world at their fingertips. Literally, there's an infinite amount of information available to them. They have to learn to filter that because some of the information is not right. It's wrong, but we have to, and that's part of our job is teaching them to be resourceful in how to use that information. But again, it's a tool, and if used inappropriately or even too much, like other tools, a knife, a saw can get dull if you use it too much or even inappropriately, and I think technology could be like that. And then the challenges that come, though, is the fact that the world is at students' fingertips. It's another communication device. There are some things that aren't so good out there, so it can be used in negative ways, and that brings some challenges to us as an administration and as classroom teachers in terms of how we monitor that. So it's just one more thing that we have to pay attention and try to work through. But it's, again, a necessity, and as we prepare you for the 21st century and the workforce that exists out there, technology literacy is necessary.
Now, considering the educational benefit of sleep, would you ever consider starting school at a later time?
I will never say never. I do believe it's important to filter information and consider things and then decide based upon the information we gather. But I think there are some challenges with that. And there are just more in terms of the way we work or function now as a society and as a school corporation in terms of being efficient and effective. We have buses that kind of run at the same time, bring all of our children to school. So if we separate that, do we have the younger students coming at one time, older students coming at another? How do we organize that? If older students are coming to school later, that means they're likely ending later. So we also have that transportation thing on the other end of the school day, as well as when do we start all those extracurricular activities that are so important and we've talked a little bit about. And including, not just when we schedule them here, practices, rehearsals, those kinds of things, but we have other schools that we compete with in extracurricular activities, and they may not change their schedule, and so when do we schedule those activities? And then from a community standpoint, some of our businesses, even some of our parents, because they might rely on their teenager to get home and take care of their children from a daycare or babysitting, I guess, situation. Do we have any issues there? So whether it's parents or businesses or employers who rely on teenagers and during the after-school hours, how does that impact them? So those are just a few of the things that maybe we'd have to consider before making a decision like that. But you know, the calendar has changed. You probably remember having summers be a little bit longer at some point in time, and over time calendars have been researched and those have been adjusted a little bit, so the summers are now a little bit shorter, but then there are extended breaks during the course of the year. We have a full week at fall break this year. We have a full week at Thanksgiving break. We have 2 weeks of Christmas break. We have 2 weeks of spring break, unless we have to make up some days because of snow. But knock on wood, maybe we won't have any snow this winter. But so changes happen with calendars. Maybe that's a possibility. But I think there are a lot of variables that we would need to thoroughly investigate before thinking through that.
Now, what hobbies and interests do you have aside from your job, and how do you think they define you?
Gosh, I'm very passionate about music, and I've referenced music a few times in terms of my interest, and so I listen to music all the time. I like everything from when rock and roll began in the 50s with Elvis Presley in 1954 and his recording of That's All Right Mama, to Buddy Holly and Jerry Lewis and Johnny Cash and others who made a splash in the 50s, to the Beatles and the Beach Boys in the 60s, and then the Rolling Stones and Cheap Trick and REO Speedwagon and other bands that came through. But I also have an eclectic flavor for music as well. I like the Clash and the Ramones and Blink-182 or the Avett Brothers or Mumford & Sons and others that are just a little bit different maybe than some of the other bands that I reference. But I constantly listen. My favorite station on Sirius is Channel 28, I believe, the Spectrum, because it goes back in time with Bob Dylan and others all the way up through eclectic new music of today, and I like getting that variety. I'm also very much into health and fitness. I believe it's important for all of us to maintain our health. It makes me more productive in my job. I think it makes each of us more productive in whatever it is we're choosing to do if we remain healthy. And so I'm an avid runner. I try to participate in at least 2 races, long races per year, being long races defined as a half marathon or a marathon. So try to do that. I try to eat well, and then I try to bring that into the school as well. I'm very passionate about making sure our students have healthy foods to eat, as well as have numerous opportunities for physical activity during the day. And so whether that's walking to school, biking to school, whether it's during the day with activity in the classroom even, physical education classes, as many as we can offer, or even recess, and making sure that younger students have a chance to go out and exercise or have some physical activity. I'm passionate about that. I've had a chance to speak within our state and nationally on the topic of wellness, as well as been on Capitol Hill debating about the merits of good nutrition for students and the importance of health and physical activity. And so it's important to me.
All right, now as a parent, what is one standard you strictly hold your children to?
Be nice. We expect that, and we expect them to be nice to everybody, to be willing to help anybody, and to respect everybody. And I hope that that's been the case. Our girls, Diana, my wife, and our girls, Riley, Reagan, and Rochelle, are now 25, 22, and 19. I'm ahead of myself. Riley has a birthday coming up. She'll be 25. But they're all heading into the medical field, I think, to help others in one way or another, whether it be a nurse, occupational therapist, or a speech pathologist. So all kind of evolving into their careers. Our youngest, Rochelle, currently at IU in college. The other 2 already with jobs. But so hopefully that helping others, doing good by others is coming into play even with their career choices.
Now, to end our show, how has the King influenced your life?
I already mentioned him in that 1954 getting started and kind of shaping, I think, my musical interests. I grew up in a household where my mom and dad listened to Elvis, and so I enjoyed listening to him, and then was fascinated by his performances, watching his performances. I remember watching his 1972 Aloha from Hawaii live in my grandma's living room. I also watched his movies as they came out. Actually, I'm a little bit younger than when they first came out, so would catch them later. I went from just paying attention, listening, and watching a little bit to fooling around, I guess, with imitating or acting like Elvis, and that evolved into some students at Hauser picking up on that. I taught at Hauser. My first 6 years of teaching were in the Flat Rock Hall Creek School Corporation, and so I did a convocation for students and dressed up like the King, and so I went from just imitating to maybe impersonating Elvis, and that evolved into a situation where on a relatively routine basis I might be able to do that, or asked to do that, but for fun. It was always kind of a do-good. I mentioned that piece earlier, and I during my time going from Hauser and then my administrative career in Batesville, where I spent 23 years as an administrator, I oftentimes was asked to go to a nursing home or a senior center and do Elvis. And that was a group of people that certainly appreciated the King, grew up maybe with him. They may have been teenagers or close to that age, or maybe a little bit older than that when he kind of rose to prominence in the 50s, and they always enjoyed that. And so I always felt like that was a community service I was giving back to our community by participating in that kind of an event. And then we would have other community events in the Batesville area where Elvis might show up. We have a photo, I think it was up just a little bit ago, of me doing Elvis at Lucas Oil Stadium. So I have done Elvis at a number of venues, large and small, from a park to a nursing home to Lucas Oil Stadium. In the Lucas Oil Stadium situation, Batesville was playing East Central High School in Lucas Oil Stadium for a football game. And so they'd ask each school to find an administrator that'd be willing to dance. and I don't mind dancing either, and performing a little bit, so I was nominated, I guess, to do that, and so participated or competed against an administrator from East Central, and I won rather handily that particular day. So that was my experience on getting to dance at the 50-yard line of Lucas Oil Stadium dressed up like Elvis.
Now, feel free to say no, but do you have an Elvis impression that you'd be willing to do?
You know, the easiest one to do is, and it's probably appropriate as we begin to wrap up this show, Pedro, is thank you very much.
Now, are there any words you'd like to send off to the viewers?
I'm just really grateful to have the opportunity to participate in this show. I think this will be a really neat situation for Bartholomew Consolidated Schools. We have a wonderful TV studio here at Columbus East. We have wonderful students from both schools that are participating in this program here. And so to have this facility, the students that we have, and to have an authentic project for you to work on, I think is just a neat situation for us. And it gives me and our school corporation, our administration, our teachers, the opportunity to share the great things that are happening within our school system. So I'm anxious to continue this program and look forward to us getting back together soon and doing it again.
All right, thank you very much for your time, Dr.
You're very
Roberts.
welcome. Thank you.